G'day, welcome to Jag Tales. My name's Paul, and if you're watching this, you're a Jaguar enthusiast like myself. The question is, what would you do if you came across a rare S Type V6 manual sports for sale? You take it home, what else? The next morning, my wife and I went out to have a look to see what I'd bought. I'd bought it as a non-runner. It had a clutch failure in 2020, around the time of the pandemic, and had been left sitting in this guy's front yard for 4.5 years. The battery, of course, was stuffed, so it wouldn't start. It was nice and straight. My wife liked it. And the interior was a little bit grubby, needed tyres, but a lot better condition than most cars that I bring home.
Take it out of gear?
Yeah, take it out, put it in neutral, but you've got no clutch. Handbrake on.
Yep.
Alright, so we've just put petrol in the car and a new battery.
See if you can listen. Work.
Turn the ignition on, got lights.
Lights.
Right, turn it off and on a couple of times.
Oh, that was a promising sound.
Alright, okay, third time,
Third time.
kick it,
Go.
go.
It failed to start. The next course of action was to get the code reader and check out the electrical faults. We found the OBD port on the left-hand side of the steering column, and we run the scan, and there was no electrical faults whatsoever. We checked all the electrics, the windows, the blinkers, the lights, everything worked. So the problem could only be the fuel pump. We opened the flap on the fuel tank and listened in the tank, and we couldn't hear the fuel pump running. Access to the fuel pump is under the back seat. There's plenty of videos on YouTube to tell you how to do that, so I'm not going to go through it again. I did find, however, that when I was putting the big nut back on the tank, that it paid me to warm it up with a hot air blower. The PVC expands and it was able to screw the thread on a lot easier. The pump itself, I used a Ford Lincoln LS, which I purchased from America. It was only like $25 US plus freight, and it didn't take very long to do that. Once we had actually put the pump in, the motor started straight away and sounded as sweet as a nut. Next job was to fix the clutch, starting with locating the clutch master cylinder. The brake and clutch share the same fluid reservoir, and to locate the clutch master cylinder meant I had to remove the plastic closer drain scuttle panel from underneath the windscreen wiper arms. The windscreen wiper arms had not been removed for 25 years and were very tight, and that meant that I had to make a puller out of old uni strut and threaded rod. Once the panel was removed, the hose to the clutch master cylinder from the clutch fluid reservoir disappeared down behind the brake booster, and that meant that the clutch was inside the car. To remove the brake booster meant that I had to remove the master cylinder. To remove the brake master cylinder meant I had to undo the ABS module from its bracket, and the flexible lines allow just enough connection so that I could disconnect the master cylinder and move it to one side. To get the brake booster off, it had to be done from inside the car, which meant I had to take off the lower trim panel beneath the steering wheel to get access to the steering column and the brake pedal box. Okay, at this stage, it was obvious that the steering column had to come out. While that was quite straightforward, disconnecting the plugs from the computer for the steering memory position was quite difficult, and you had to take a lot of care that you didn't break any of the connections. Once the steering column was out, it exposed the clutch brake pedal box, and from that we got our first look at the clutch master cylinder. The clutch pedal was spring-loaded and it flip-flopped between up and down without activating the piston in the clutch master cylinder. So this was a bit of a mystery as to why it would do that, and we have only later, when we pulled the whole clutch master cylinder apart, we found that the activating rod was snapped into a plastic circlip on the piston for the clutch master cylinder. And it relied on the hydraulic pressure to push the piston back to the out position. To be able to remove the gearbox, the entire exhaust system had to come off. The rubber exhaust pipe hangers were very difficult to remove with very limited access. So I made up a sliding wedge tool, which has worked very, very well, and I was able to get the rubber hangers off the exhaust pipes without much trouble. And having a hoist, I was able to remove the complete exhaust pipe in one go. The removal of the gearbox can be done completely from underneath the car. There is no need to remove the centre console. The remote control on the gear lever can actually stay bolted to the car. So you've only got to disconnect the rods attached to the gearbox. The gearbox was quite straightforward to remove. All the bolts were accessible with very long extension bars. Some of them were very tight, but we had to get them out. The biggest problem was the wiring that was on the actual gearbox was pushed on with little serrated stake nuts onto aluminium dowels that were on the side of the gearbox. Now, that was a sort of a single-use item, and you had to use a lot of force to actually get them off. To reattach them to the gearbox, I used a 6mm die nut to actually thread the studs, and I ground out the serrated washers, and I held the wiring on with just 6mm nuts. To purchase the clutch parts I needed locally, I found were ridiculously expensive or not available at all. So I actually did all my shopping online, and I was able to get a clutch master cylinder for Europe for less than half the price it was advertised for locally. What I have here is the Luke Rep Set Pro. The part number is LK07-201. I purchased this from America, and it's a clutch kit to fit a Ford Lincoln LS. I took the punt that it would fit the S Type Jaguar, and I'll show you the difference. I'll just unpack this and give you a look at what's inside of it. So it comes with the concentric slave cylinder, right, a dummy spigot shaft, and a little tube of grease. So here we have the pressure plate, and it's got the 6mm dowel holes, so it fits a 6mm flywheel. So I need a flywheel. The dual mass flywheel is worn out, so I've got to buy one of them. And you can't get them from America. You can only buy them from Jaguar as a genuine part. So I've taken a punt and I've bought this. This is the Lincoln, and I'm going to buy a flywheel from England, and hopefully the two will marry up. That's the cheapest way to do it. Now, just checking out all the rest of this, it comes with a clutch plate. There's the clutch plate, and it has a part number on it, and I've checked the part number out, and it's exactly the same part number as the clutch that I pulled out, so I'm very hopeful that it'll be the right clutch. Right, we have the flywheel that I got from Jaguar alongside the original 99 to 2001 flywheel, and you can see the difference in the shape of the outside of them. The early model have the 10mm dowels, and the later model one only have the 6mm dowels. So now we're going to try putting the clutch plate and pressure plate from the Ford Lincoln onto that flywheel to see if it fits. All right, I'll put that on.
Right.
Yep. That's perfect. Now the 6mm dowels line up. And
so 6mm dowels.
6mm dowels, and snug as a bug in a rug. Right. Okay, perfect. So that's the Lincoln clutch plate and pressure plate onto the Jaguar flywheel. Now the other difference was the bolts. They recommended you replace all the bolts. Now these are the original bolts, and I can show you the difference between the original bolts
and the new bolts. And the main difference is in the length of the thread. So you can see the length of the thread's different, which means it's imperative that you replace the bolts, and you can't use the old bolts in the new flywheel. And the thickness of the flange is actually thicker as well, and they're identified by being counterbored in the top of the bolt. So that's important that you use the right bolts when you replace the flywheel. After quite an extensive search online, I was able to find this workshop manual, which was able to give me the torque specs for the crankshaft bolts and also the cover bolts. The crankshaft bolts were 80 Newton meters and the cover plate bolts were 25 Newton meters, and of course I used Loctite to put them on both of them. After that, it was just a matter of following the step-by-step procedure to bolt them up.
It's too late to adjust this at all.
That should come out. Yep, the clutch is lined.
You happy with the alignment?
Yeah.
It's in the middle of all of the fingers.
With the clutch fitted, it was time to put the gearbox back in the car and put this thing together so we can take it for a test drive. Okay, Oscar, are you ready to start it up? Drive it off the hoist.
Alright, ignition.
Brand new clutch, new fuel pump.
Start.
First time off the hoist, yep.
There it is.
The goer.
Right.
There was a horrible clicking sound coming from the tail shafts, which meant we had to remove the tail shaft, and I found out it was a rusted up universal joint. The universal joint was actually staked into the yokes. This meant that the tail shaft was a single-use item and you were supposed to replace the whole tail shaft. Jaguar no longer supply the tail shaft, so I was lucky enough to find a company that had the machinery that could replace the universal joint, centre it, balance it and restake it. Stage, I'd like to share some other interesting facts about the S Type Sports, and that is the 3 litre motor was a Porsche design, built under licence by Ford. Jaguar fitted it with Cosworth designed cylinder heads, which was a twin overhead cam. Developed like 180 kilowatts or 240 horsepower at 6,800 revs. The maximum torque came in at 4,600 revs, so they were quite a revvy little motor. The S-Type Sports had a lower ride height than the standard S-Types. They had stiffer springs and electronically controlled shock absorbers. They came standard with Pirelli P0 tyres, 225 by 55 by 17s on 7-inch rims, as opposed to the 16-inch by 6-inch rims on the standard S-Type. So the S-Type Sports performance was 0 to 100 kilometres an hour in 6.9 seconds with a top speed of 150 mile an hour. So they were a very quick car. Finally, this project was finished after what seemed to take forever, sourcing the parts and doing the repairs that were necessary to get this car back on the road, and we were able to take it for our first test drive. My first impressions of driving the S-Type was that the clutch was light, the gear change was precise, the steering and the brakes were superb. The road holding was great, the ride was firm, and it got stiffer when you pushed it hard through a corner. The S-Type Sports is a super rare car, and it's just a great fun car to drive. It's an ideal club track day car. If you like this video, give me the thumbs up, and thank you for watching.